Okay. So they came back in, and when they came back in, they said, we were very impressed with you. We love your answers. You are an intelligent young lady. We want to offer you a job as a principal. But we can't tell you which principal you were going to be at this time. But we want you to come in immediately so you can hire, with our assistant, all of the principals for every school, hire all of the teachers for all the schools. And we want you to go and visit those schools with us. And so I said, well, you know, I don't know if I can give you an answer today. I said, because I love my job at Virginia Union University, but I'm going to need some money to leave Virginia Union University. And I said, well, when will you be able to tell me how much money I'm going to make? And they said, well, we can't tell you today, but you'll hear from us in about a week. I said, okay, then I have another problem. And they said, what is it? I said, you can't have me without having my husband. And I said, he's an assistant principal in Richmond City. So if you're going to take me, you must take him too. So they said, okay, we'll get back with you. And so I couldn't even get down the highway. When I got home, there was a call telling me they wanted to offer me a job as a principal. They couldn't tell me which one, but they wanted me to come in early because they wanted me to help with the overall planning and implementation of the school system. And so I said, well, did you talk about salary? So they told me the salary. It was a very lucrative salary to come from Richmond up here to Northern Virginia. So I couldn't turn it down. And I said, now what about my husband? They said, well, the only thing we can tell you right now is we promised him a job too. We don't know what it's going to be. And so I decided that I was going to take it. So I moved to Manassas in March of 1977. And my husband stayed in Richmond because we had to sell the house down there. And I started to visit the schools with the board. And we visited Baldwin, we visited Jenny Dean Middle, and we visited Osborne. Now Baldwin and Jenny Dean had students. Osborne was used as a central office for the county. So there were no children there. But when I went to Baldwin and I saw the kids in that school, they were shooting peas through the straws, and they would go up in there and come down in the principal's hair. And she would say, now, 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 don't do that. I couldn't believe it. And then we went into classrooms, and we saw some of the teaching that was going on, or the lack of teaching. And then we went to Jenny Dean, and we saw discipline was better, but I did not like the quality of instruction that I saw. So the board gave me the autonomy to choose the teachers that I wanted to keep, or let all of them go with Prince William County and start over. Well, I decided if this school division is going to get off on the right track, and if we are going to provide excellence and quality experience for these children, they needed a brand new start. We didn't take any of them. So the board gave me the autonomy to hire from all over the country, over the United States. And then we hired principals. We hired the principal. We were building Wings Elementary School. So we hired the principal for Wings, Robert Thomas. Ann Yak was with the county, and Mr. Fincham was with the county. And so we wanted to keep Mr. Fincham as the black principal in that school, and we wanted to keep Mrs. Yak as the assistant principal. And we hired, we had to hire a high school principal, Mr. Vicajiti, for Osborne. And then I said to them, well, where am I going? They said, well, we're going to put you at Baldwin because we know you can handle those children and straighten them out. And back then, Baldwin was known as the school across the railroad track. And I said, oh my God, I thought I was going to get Wings, the brand new school that's on the opposite side of the railroad track. But I said to my husband, you know what? these children need a great education, although they're across the railroad track, and they had a terrible reputation when they were with the county. But because of my personality and because of my perception of what is good and what is bad in education, when I hired people for my staff, if they didn't think like Alice Howard, they couldn't work for me. If they didn't want to be a teacher and be a mother, and in some instances be a father to these children, they couldn't work for Alice Howard. If they were a person who wanted to come in just to draw a paycheck, they couldn't work for Alice Howard.
What was the racial makeup of the school?
The racial makeup at that time, for wings, predominantly white. For Jenny Dean, combination, because it was the only middle school. For my school, predominantly black. Most of my kids walked from Georgetown South. Mm. And so my school was really black, and then eventually it grew to be black and Hispanic. But let me tell you, I changed that school system. With the people that I brought in with me, and with them knowing that I am not a 7 to 4 person, that if we are going to be the best school in the city for other schools to model after, if we're going to be one of the best schools in the state to model after, if we're going to have people from the state of Virginia coming in looking at what we are doing because of our test scores, we were the first innovative school in the northern Virginia area, including Arlington, Alexandria, Arlington. My school, we piloted Dr. Jack Davis, who was the state superintendent, early childhood education program. My school became the model because I wrote the grant for it. I chose the people for it. I took these kids who were considered to be low income and showed them what you can do with kids if you have the right mentality, if you have the right expectation, and also if you believe that all students can learn. And so when I left Baldwin, I had all of the principals doing everything that I did. I was the first principal to introduce technology in my school. I was the first principal to be the Title I director and a principal. I was the special ed director and the principal. I was the gifted and talented director and the principal. I did the reports for the superintendent, whom I loved dearly but wasn't qualified for the position. When they hired him, he wasn't even certified. He did not have his certification to be a superintendent. They put him through some classes for a couple of weeks and got his certification out of Richmond so he could become the superintendent when they had a qualified black lady who already had her certification. But they weren't ready for me.
So even in the 70s, you're seeing this.
Oh, yes.
This racism.
Oh, Lord, yes. And we're seeing it now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're seeing it now. And so because I was doing all of those jobs and no additional money, I decided, you're not using Alice Howard any longer. It's time for me to leave. Because when you become a building principal and you're that principal for 20 years and you no longer have to plan, you know it's time for you to make a change. Mm-hmm. And so I did. And so what I did, I went to my superintendent and my assistant superintendent and told them that I was developing my portfolio and that they knew I had done a lot for the school system and that I needed them to write me a letter of reference. I didn't tell a lie, but I didn't tell them my plan. Because while I love him and I loved her, if they had known I was leaving, I would have gotten the letter I got. Mm. So what I did, my mom and daddy taught me strategies. They taught us how to strategize.
Even though they didn't have an education, right?
That's why I said she's a great woman with wisdom.
Yeah.
And so what I did, I got my letters, I got my portfolio all together. And then I saw an article in the newspaper where they were looking for an associate superintendent in Petersburg. And I applied. I went down, drove down that evening, my husband and myself. And I interviewed, and when I showed them my portfolio, they didn't have to call nobody. Because I had letters from the Department of Ed. I had letters from former state superintendents. I had letters from just about every superintendent I had worked for. I had letters from the superintendent's office out of the Virginia superintendent's office out of Charlottesville. So my portfolio was together. And so when I left, the next day I get a call. We want to offer you the job. Oh, you do? Well, what is the salary? I'm going to have to negotiate the salary because I can't leave my salary in Northern Virginia to come to Petersburg. And so they negotiated the salary, and they said, we'll call you tomorrow and let you know. And they did. And then I got it. And so I stayed there 3 years. And my Lord, for a school division to get so much federal money, it was a mess when I got there. Lack of quality teachers, lack of curriculum guides for the teachers to use to teach the kids, teachers hadn't participated in professional development training, they didn't go to conferences, so I had my hands full. So what I did was I went back to Manassas and I pulled my white assistant principal at Baldwin that I brought in, and he had left Baldwin and went to Metz, and he was the assistant principal at Metz, Tony Dursa. And Tony lived in Fredericksburg. And so Tony and I would commute every day for 3 years